preservation of character houses in Brisbane is about class segregation. It's not about heritage, and arguably it's not even about character, unless by the word character you mean wealthy, upper class suburb character. Now, this is in Bulimba. Someone sent this to me and asked me what my thoughts were. So they're lifting this house and extending it. This is what it will look like when they're finished. Quoting, luxurious 3-story mansion with pool, gym, underground garage that can fit 10 cars. Now, there's an existential question here. If this is the house that you want, like you've got enough money to do this and this is the house that you want, why would you buy a block with a character house? Like there are plenty of post-war houses that you can just knock down and do whatever you want with. But maybe they really, really liked this block. So the reason for this kind of bizarre renovation is that in Brisbane, you have to retain any character house. So any house built between the beginning of time and 1947. Well, not exactly the beginning of time, because we know that we don't preserve Aboriginal heritage. Anyway, most of these houses were constructed in the interwar period. These were working class houses back in the day. Watch some of my other videos. Places like these are considered the slums of Brisbane. And most character houses have been demolished. So there's only about 1 in 5-ish that are still retained. So up until the 1980s, most of these were knocked down. It was about 30 years ago that people thought, well, actually, is there something unique about this type of housing? And maybe we should preserve it. So from about the mid-1990s, 1995, they introduced demolition control precincts, so areas where demolition was prohibited. And then from about the 2000s, bipartisan support, so blue team and red team worked together to introduce protections for these houses. Now, Brisbane City Council benefits from this great aerial map that was done, this aerial imagery that was done in 1946. And so this is what they base their planning rules on. So if your house was in this map, then it will be in a traditional character overlay, it will be in a traditional character zone, and you are not allowed to demolish it. Again, this is a map from my research. It just shows the extent of this zone in the kind of inner area of Brisbane. So the red is the character infill zone. So you can build townhouses and apartments in this zone, but you have to retain the character house at the front of the lot, and any infill, so any townhouses or apartments have to be of a similar scale, so 2 to 3 stories. In the pink zone, you cannot do infill, but you can still subdivide if your block is big enough. So if you've got an 800 square meter block, you can still subdivide it and have 2 400 square meter lots, for example, but you still have to have that character house at the front. That preservation requirement is what leads to buildings like this. Like, I used to think this was bad. Like, I would look at this and be like, oh, what have they done here? And what character are you actually preserving here? Remember, when these houses were first built, they did not have indoor toilets. They were outhouses. Some of them didn't have running water. They certainly didn't have garages. So I used to think, oh. And when you see outcomes like this, you think, is this how the policy was supposed to be applied? Like, this is kind of silly. And this article is talking about the added construction costs. So by doing this, by retaining the house, they're adding like $800,000 to their construction bill. The craziest thing about this is you can build a house, it's compliant with the planning scheme. You can build a house that fits 10 cars, but you cannot build apartments. Now, before anyone comes after me, I have been yelled at about this before. I like character houses. I love them. And most of them have been demolished. So that's a map on the, that map C. This one over here. Now, the grey is my study areas, and the grey is the houses back in 1946. And you can see that most of them in the South Brisbane, West End area, like South Brisbane, most of them have been demolished, right? So retain the house or don't. This middle ground is... I actually think we should embrace this building tradition. This is actually not a character house. This is a new build house. This is in Forest Lakes. This house is 30 years old. But there's a lot of houses in that suburb that have this Queenslander tin and timber vibe, right? And I think we should embrace that. This looks like it should be in Brisbane compared to the new build houses that could be anywhere across the country. But this is not a character house. I don't know what this is. This is something else. If you have not had vegetation growing through your casement window and your house with no heating outside and there's not wind coming up your floorboards or through your walls, then it's not a Queenslander, in my opinion.